One, 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 one. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the proof. Welcome to one-on-one at Legacy Maker Sports Network. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is episode 99 of One-on-One here on the Legacy Maker Sports Network. I am so glad to be here today for episode 99. We are one away from 100. And when we started this during the pandemic, didn't know we would get this far. At first, it was like, all right, we'll see what happens. But now we are here, and now it has become such a fun part of my life and to go on from there. But today, you know, finally I get a chance to bring on one of the best in the game. I know y'all say, hey, you say that stuff all the time. No. The people I run into, the people I bring on here, they are the best in the game. And this gentleman right here is one of the best in the game. Writer for Sports Illustrated Fan Nation. He does the Bucs, he does the Wizards with myself, and he does the Commanders. So that's Commanders Country, Bucs Game Day, and Inside the Wizards. Oh, and there's a little bit more, y'all. Look, there's a little bit more that this gentleman does. He also is the host of Locked On Bucs and Commanders on the Locked On Podcast Network. My man, Mr. David Harrison. How you doing today, sir?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. I appreciate the intro. That's kinder words than I probably deserve, but I appreciate you. I appreciate
we're not going to talk like that. All deserve. One of the best and one of the most humble guys I know, and it's an honor to get on here and to chop it up and talk to you today, brother.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. I've been looking forward to it. We scheduled this a while back. I've been looking forward to it ever since, though.
I know, man. I feel like it's funny. When I started, reaching out to everybody for season 4, I was like, man, we're in May, but I tried to get everything lined up, and now it popped up really fast as the season started going. I was like, man, boom. But now we're here, and once again, we are glad to have you, brother.
Yeah, man.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get it started with the thing we love to do the most here and the most important thing that we do on here, and that is the check-in. Before we get rolling good, before we get into all the sports talk, all the fun stuff, how's David Harrison doing? How is the family? How's the friends? How's everything going on right now for David Harrison? How's that working out for you, brother?
Oh, man, I can't complain. You know what I mean? I'm living the dream that I always wanted to live. You know what I mean? Doing what I want to do for work and provide my family the life that that they want, and it makes them happy and makes us happy. And we've got animals just running all over my home and property, and that makes my wife happy. And my kids are employed and out of jail, and doing those, not that they've been in jail, but you know what I mean, they're staying out of trouble. And that's all you can ask for. You know what I mean? That and a little bit of luck in the health department, and we're rolling through.
Hey, well, look, man, happy wife, happy life. That is not 100%. Just a slogan that people say. I'm pretty sure they would agree with me. I've been married myself 17 years, going on 18. And if she's happy, if you can get through that and she's happy, you're gonna enjoy your life a lot more.
Yeah. Absolutely. You make your wife a queen, you become a king. You know what I mean? That's how this works. So.
Touche, sir. Touche. Well, let's kind of get into it. Let's talk and learn about Mr. David Harrison. So, David, I wanted to know when you were younger David, and we're talking about, between 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, where did that passion for sports come from? Where did you first get that initial, like, man, I love sports, why am I so infatuated with sports? Where did that kind of come from for you?
Yeah, it has to come from my father. You know what I mean? I come from a fairly small family. Like my father, where he's from and where the rest of kind of our extended family is from isn't where, I grew up. Like he was in the Army, so we grew up moving around the world really, and then especially the country as well. So, I really had kind of a very small circle of family members, and, he was always kind of the sports guy. He's an Ohio State Buckeyes fan. He grew up right outside Columbus, Ohio. So of course I was raised to be a Buckeye fan, and like all Buckeye babies, I've got the onesie pictures of me wearing Ohio State stuff. I had a stuffed Brutus the Buckeye when I was a kid, and all that. I bought my son a stuffed Brutus the Buckeye when he was born. You know what I mean? So just kind of following that tradition, and and then of course him being in the Army, like that competitiveness. And that competitive nature that he kind of brought through in his profession and also just in his personality really just kind of bled over into me. And so, I mean, football by itself has been just kind of part of my memories from, my youngest days. Like the earliest memories I have, there's something related to football, whether it's wearing something to a zoo or whether it's going to Frankfurt Galaxy games in Germany. Actually, to this day, my favorite American football team of all time is and probably will always be the Frankfurt Galaxy of the old World League. And that's kind of a weird thing to tell NFL fans, because a lot of NFL fans these days don't even know who the Frankfurt Galaxy were.
They don't
or actually, yeah, I mean, they actually still do exist. They have no affiliation to the NFL whatsoever anymore. But that's kind of where it began. And then he was never like a football or a basketball, hockey fan. Baseball, I think he liked the Reds, if I remember correctly. You know what I mean? But when we moved to Colorado, he retired out of Fort Carson, Colorado. So when we got there and I was kind of becoming, a teenager and starting to get like my own thought processes, that's when I became a Rockies fan, a Nuggets fan, an Avalanche fan, and that kind of started my appreciation of other sports. I'm not a huge baseball fan these days. Like, if you ask like Troy Tulowitzki playing for the Colorado Rockies, probably the last time I was really paying attention to baseball. So that kind of tells you how long it's been. I still enjoy the ballpark, and Orioles games are amazing. So anybody in the DMV, like Orioles games, are amazing. I haven't been to a Nats game yet. Honestly, I used to work in and around the National Stadium at Fort McNair, and I hated driving around there for work, and I didn't want to spend any of my off time in the exact same area. So I haven't been to a Nats game, but someday I will go to a Nats game.
It's too close. It's too close. And, it's funny because I've been to one Nats game and went to one Orioles game. I got to see the Nats play the Mets. Like, it was first ever major league game I went to. That was a long time ago. Me and my brother went to see the Mariners take on, I'm a big Mariners fan. So I got to go see the Mariners take on Baltimore, and I got to see my boy Nelson Cruz go to work that day. And everybody was scoring on that day. And it's funny, me and you talked during OTAs about your Frankfurt Galaxy love. And I was wondering, are you any closer to getting that Frankfurt Galaxy jersey?
No, man. I will give a lot of credit to the Frankfurt Galaxy people. Like, I messaged the Frankfurt Galaxy. I can't remember the name of the league anymore. It's like the European American Football League or something. It's completely independent. It's a European league. They have no, like I said, they have no NFL or American affiliations anymore. But I messaged them a while back and I was like, hey, I'm a Frankfurt Galaxy fan from like the late 80s, early 90s. I really want some gear and stuff like that. I would love to rep the team or whatever. And they tried, man. Like, they tried their hardest. I mean, they were messaging me back and forth. Like, the customer service was through the roof. They just couldn't make it happen. I don't know what the hang up is, but they just couldn't get it to where they could let me pay them in dollars because their website only takes euros and all that stuff, and then ship it to America. And I even told them, like, I don't care what the shipping cost is. I'll pay the shipping cost. Any diehard fans out there know what I'm talking about. Like, that's what you're willing to do. Go through. You just get like a hat and a T-shirt. You know what I mean? Just trying to get told that their logo is different now. It's darker purple and it's gold, and back in my day, kind of dating myself, it was like a lighter purple and orange. You know what I mean? So I think somewhere in my father's house, he used to have his Frankfurt Galaxy jersey. It was just a generic. It just had Galaxy on the back, and I'm pretty sure he has it somewhere. So maybe someday
you got to break it out. Hey,
or something. Yeah,
come in the Commanders can't rock in the Frankfurt jersey.
Hey, man. Hey, I wore my Nuggets hat. I wore my Nuggets hat when they made the finals. And you speak of the Mariners, actually, I do want to throw out, like, before the Rockies, I was actually a huge Ken Griffey Jr. Fan. So of course, because of that, I was a Mariners fan, like the beginning of A-Rod, Jay Buhner, Edgar Martinez, like all those guys, obviously Randy Johnson. Like, I was a big Mariners fan because of Junior, because of Griffey. Actually in Little League, I used to wear Ken Griffey Jr.'s number, and I did a lot of shame to that number. I should not have been allowed to wear that number, but,
that's too funny.
So I still, if a Mariners game is on, I'm clicking through. I still stop to watch Mariners games from time to time. So, I've gotten its affection to them.
There's nothing wrong with that. The Mariners are still, like I said, it's still in my heart. They're the only one of my teams that have not been to a their major sports championship. My Avalanche, I guess our Avalanche. We got a chance to see one last year. Look, it's back there somewhere. Bam. And so, our Avalanche, maybe not the what we saw this year, probably not what we wanted to see, but we did we got a Stanley Cup last year. That was really good to see. And my story, I always tell people, like, they always ask me, like, how did you become a Colorado Avalanche fan being so far away? And I said, well, the funny story about that, there's one thing, and that's NHL 94. But in NHL 94, they were the Quebec Nordiques. That was the only team I played with on that game. So when the new game came out, and I'm like, man, where are the Quebec Nordiques? I couldn't find them. And come to find out they're in Colorado. And there it is, 25, almost 30 years later. And that's why I'm a Colorado Avalanche fan. But with all that being said,
I think that year is the first time I bought that game.
Isn't it crazy?
Like, to play the Colorado Avalanche. Yeah, I mean,
it's right there.
I wasn't a huge hockey fan, but they moved to Colorado. I'm like, that's my team. You know what I mean?
There it is. Yeah. I'm right there with you. I got both games sitting right there. The 94, I think I got 94 and 95 sitting in there. I haven't played them. I can play them after we do this. But with that being said, you talked about the military. Now, you also were in the military. Just give us a little bit about your experience in the military and how that shaped you.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I got to go back to kind of when I joined. I signed up at 17, and it's such a cliche, man. But I got to this realization. I don't know if I was 16 or 17 yet, but I was, it was around 16, 17. I came to this realization that I was gonna need to find something to drastically change the path I was on. And like I said, this is where the cliche comes in. I was either end up in jail, dead, or in the army. Like, that's pretty much, those are my three options. And again, it's like every cheesy military movie you've ever seen. That's the story, right? And so as cliche as it is, that's kind of where I came from. You know what I mean? And so I decided very early on that I was going to join the army. My dad was in the army. I really didn't even give a thought to the other branches. This kind of shows you the mentality of 17-year-old David Harrison. I really didn't consider it. My father was in the army for 20 plus years. He was in the Marine Corps before that, 23, 25 years of total service.
Wow.
And I never even questioned, I never even asked him a question as far as what to do, any advice. And I just kind of went to a recruiter and said, hey, I need to go to the army. And I told him, I'm on this path or whatever, I wasn't going to college. It just wasn't going to happen. And the job I was in, honestly, looking back on it, the field that I was in the restaurant business, and I had actually worked my way up to being a waiter by the time I was 16 years old, which I don't know how the world is today, but at least in Colorado in those days, that was pretty rare and substantial, which I didn't really understand at the time. This is kind of diverting off of another tree, but my manager, when he found out I was joining the army, offered me an assistant manager job once I turned 18 if I didn't join the army. And in my adolescent mind, I'm like, I'm not going to work in the restaurant business my whole life. What are you, crazy? Not realizing like that's a pretty good path to be on. So again, lessons learned. But again, I mean, I met my wife, because I was in the army, so I don't regret anything. But just kind of shows you the mindset of, juvenile me, and probably why I was in the situation I was in the first place. But so I joined the army. So I go to the recruiter. Take all the tests and everything. He says I'm good to go. I get all my contract stuff laid out. Ironically, he actually worked for my father at one point while they were both at Fort Carson. So he tried to hook me up with all kinds of stuff. And, me being this strong, young, independent, growing man, I said, no, I don't want any special treatment, which, so I turned down bonuses and options that I regret turning down to this day, because why wouldn't you want those options and those bonuses, right? But that, again, just kind of an inside view into who I was back then. And one day I brought the paperwork to my father, and I told him, joining the army, I need you to sign this paperwork. And he basically looked at me and he said, you don't really do well following authority and following rules, and if you go AWOL, don't come home. And so I said, okay, bet. Well, I know what I said. Bet wasn't a thing back then, so I don't know what I said to him, but I said the equivalent of bet. You know what I mean?
Man.
Joined the army. So I left. I was still 17 when I left. Actually, I remember I got my first issue of uniforms, and I got all of my vaccinations on my 18th birthday. So that was my 18th birthday present. Called my girlfriend at the time from basic training and didn't even know it was my birthday. I called her. She answered the phone, and she was like, happy birthday, and didn't even know it was my birthday. That's just kind of the mindset you're in. So that's the way I started. And I mean, there's there's a lot more to it. Like, I accidentally signed up for the job that I signed up for. Like, it's amazing, Darrell, honestly, that I'm even alive right now, to be quite honest. When I look back at me as a younger person, like, I don't even know how I made it.
Like, what was I doing?
Yeah. I mean, do you want to hear the story how I accidentally signed up for my job?
Yeah, I want to hear this one. I want to hear this one.
I don't want to take too much time, but like, I will tell you, because I laugh at myself about it all the time. So, all right. So I go to reception, which for those who don't know is kind of the final step. You go to this building, they do kind of your final paperwork, final tests, you pee in the cup, they do a physical, you take your ASVAB, you get your official, ASVAB score. I don't know if it's ASVAB anymore. And then you pick your job. If you're in the Army, you sign up for your job and you do your final contract, you swear in, and then you get on a bus, you go to an airplane, you go to base training, boom, you're in the Army. So I go there, I take the ASVAB. And so you're in groups, right? They put you in groups, and there's like one person that kind of takes you around all the stations as a group. So I go to the ASVAB room, I sit down, and it's on computer. I take my test, I'm done. I look around, and everybody's still working. So immediately I get nervous. I'm like, I missed something. So I go back through the test. I'm good. I look around, people are still working. I'm like, I'm terrified at this point. So I get up, I go to the front of the room, I tell the guy sitting in the front of the room, I'm like, hey, I'm done. And he goes, you're done? I was like, I'm done. And he goes, did you check everything? I was like, I checked everything. I'm done. He's like, run ahead and catch the next group. So immediately I already know I screwed up, right? Like, there's no way. I got done with this test, checked it again, and I'm still done so fast that this dude is surprised and telling me to join the group ahead of me. So I run up, I tell them what happened. And literally the guy that's running that group, he starts laughing. And he's like, okay, get over here, whatever. Come to find out, I actually scored really high, which again, I don't know how that happened. So I sit down with the contractor and she says, what do you want to do? What job do you want? What MOS do you want? I said infantry. And she was kind of surprised. She goes, why infantry? I was like, well, I don't really know anything else. Like I said, I didn't ask any questions. I didn't read any pamphlets.
Right.
I literally, Darrell, just joined the Army. Yeah. And she goes, well, she's like, well, listen, she's like, people with your test scores typically don't go infantry. Typically, they go something else. I was like, well, I don't know anything else. She goes, well, what about infantry, attracts you? And I said, I don't know. I'm just joining the Army. Like, I don't have a goal. And so she said, listen, she goes, military police, they, in the field, they do similar things to the infantry. But when they're not in the field, they have another job, obviously law enforcement. And she's like, so that would probably be a better route for you. I said, okay, cool, fine. And she's okay, so write down military police and write down infantry on this paper, and we'll see which one we can get you. Darrell, I wrote military police. So she got up and left. So I wrote military police on the first line because I didn't want to forget what she said. That's literally why I wrote it on the first line. Then I wrote infantry, turned in the paper, went and sat in the waiting room, came back. When I came back, the guy said, congratulations, we got you your first choice, which was military police. And the only reason I wrote it first is so I wouldn't forget what she told me. That's how I became a military police soldier in the United States Army, ladies and gentlemen.
That is hilarious, David. It's like, I don't know. I just wrote it down. Hey, that's too funny, David. Hey, but that's cool though, man. That's interesting. Look, David's like, all I care about is that I am in the Army. All right. That's what I signed up for. I am here to be here. That's all I care about.
Oh my goodness.
Well, so obviously, you're no longer in the Army. So thank you for your service in that time frame, brother.
Oh, I appreciate it.
But let's talk about how you got into the sports journalism career. What took over? What was the path that took you on your sports journalism career to where we are right now?
All right. So I'm gonna try to do this without crying. So 6 years into my Army career, I had deployed twice already. And so just kind of backing up a little, I joined the Army September 19th of 2000. So I was barely less than a year in the Army when 9/11 happened. And so 6 years into my career, I've deployed twice. Once to Kosovo for peacekeeping, once to Afghanistan for combat. And I get an opportunity to go K9 to be an explosive detection dog handler. So I took the opportunity. And so from 2000, I went to school in 2007. So from 2006, I get the opportunity. 2007, I go to school, come back from school. I'm in my unit, and eventually this guy comes to my unit in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, as a dog handler by the name of Dick Lee. And he and I immediately hit it off. He's one of the greatest dudes I've met. He's a huge football fan. I'm an Ohio State fan. He's a Florida fan. And if you go back to like the early 2000s, you know what I mean? Like Florida was running Ohio State in multiple sports. So it was not a fun time for me as a Buckeye fan, but it was a fun time for him and I to trash talk each other. Right. So again, becomes one of my best friends. You know what I mean? We end up eventually. I deployed to Iraq in 2008. He eventually deploys to Iraq in 2009. And we weren't in the same location, but any chance we had to be in the same location, we took it. We would go back and we would light campfires and just sit and talk about our families and talk about honestly things that soldiers talk about in combat zones, man. Some of it's morbid, like what if I die, what do I want my wife to do? What about my kids? What about this? What about that? And so we bonded. Fast forward a little bit, I come back from Iraq. I finished my time in Missouri, ended up in Germany, and he comes to Germany later, again a different kennel, but we're both in the same country. And he ends up getting killed in Afghanistan. It was like his fourth or fifth deployment, first mission of that deployment, very first mission. He was with a special forces unit. They get hit by an anti-tank mine. He was in a side-by-side cart. There's nothing they could do. So he ends up getting killed. And that kind of sent me into a little bit of a spiral. So I ended up with survivor's guilt. Like there's a whole lot of other elements to it on why I ended up with a really bad case of survivor's guilt, man. It sends me into this big tailspin. And just everything, like just breathing became hard. You know what I mean? And not to mention, I was at my sister's rehearsal dinner in San Diego, California. So I'm from Germany in San Diego, California with my sister and her fiance and my youngest daughter, because she's the flower girl. And that's when I find out. So my wife and my other two children are in Germany. I'm in California. Like it's a mess, man. So that sends me on kind of this tailspin for a little while, honestly. And, I got to a point where I was just like, I got to make good of this. You know what I mean? Or else it's going to destroy me. Right. I thought about it. Football was always our thing. And honestly, from like even before I met him, like when I was talking like football with other soldiers or talk, whatever, I would coach like flag football teams for our little unit sports and all that stuff. And people all the time would be like, bro, you need to be on ESPN. You need, like, you're better than ESPN. You need to be, you know what I mean? And I was just like, oh yeah, whatever. And so I kind of just got this bug in my head. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to pursue this. Like, I don't know what it's going to do, but I'm going to pursue it. So I talked to my wife and she was, on board. So I reached out. I literally Googled. I was like, so again, part of who I was, still part of who I am. I literally Googled as like the best journalism schools in the country that offer online programs. Because again, I'm in the Army. You know what I mean? I can't go to campus. Arizona State was the number 6 ranked journalism school at the time. They were the top one that had a completely online degree. So I emailed the Walter Cronkite School of Journalism at Arizona State and just started asking questions. The next thing you know, I'm in college and I got my degree and I've been working up ever since, man.
That's awesome, dude, man. That's amazing, man. Sorry for the loss of your friend, man. I know it can't be easy, but just that perseverance and showing, where you came from to where you are now, man. That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. I mean, and look, and you thriving, brother. I mean, let's be honest with you, y'all. A little bit all over the place. I mean, you got visual on a lot of things there, and you do the Commanders, you do the Bucs. Let's kind of get into that a little bit, man. Let's talk a little bit about the Commanders and the Bucs. NFL season is right around the corner. You've been doing your thing on Locked On Sports, the Locked On Podcast Network. You've been doing your thing on there. So I got to get inside from the man who's talking to him every day. You're in there every day. You're talking. I mean, I'm there too, but I mean with the Commanders, but you got a little bit more in depth in there. So let's talk a little bit about it. What are your outlooks on both the Commanders and the Bucs as we head into the 2023/24 season?
Yeah, I'm definitely more bullish on the Commanders than I am the Buccaneers at this point. Like the Washington Commanders, I think the defense is just easily one of the top 12, maybe a top 10 unit in the National Football League right now. I think they certainly have the potential to challenge to be in like a top 8 unit in the NFL this year if health obviously stays on their side, and then if some of the intellectual football that we're seeing developing over the years under Jack Del Rio continues and even gets better. The offense is obviously where the question is. The offensive line, honestly, is my biggest question. I know a lot of people, their biggest question is quarterback. I'm actually more worried about the offensive line than I am Sam Howell or even Jacoby Brissett if it were to come to that, because I subscribe to the Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks method of understanding teams, whereas if you're really good in the trenches, it's hard to be a bad team. But at the same time, if you're really bad in the trenches, it's hard to be a good team. So for the Washington Commanders, if your offensive line is protecting your quarterback, if they're opening holes for the running back, and it's not going to happen on every play basis. That's just not how the NFL works. But if you're doing it more times than not, then your team's going to have an opportunity to win. So I'm more worried. And I wouldn't even say worried necessarily. Just that's my biggest question mark is the offensive line. I feel like if that offensive line can do what they need to do at an average level or even better, which would just be a cherry on top, then this offense is going to be fine. They've got enough playmakers, and I have enough confidence in Sam Howell from getting to know him and just from what we've seen in a limited sample size to think that if he has time, if he has protection, if he's not worried about getting hit every single snap, then he'll be able to do his job. So the Commanders, I mean, I consider them a wild card contender. You know what I mean? I put them in that category in the National Football League. I know that's higher than a lot of people, and some people are going to say, well, that's a homerism type of deal. But again, I'll remind you, I'm a Frankfurt Galaxy fan. I'm not a Washington Commanders fan. I wasn't a Redskins fan. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm an Art Monk fan. I really loved Art Monk. Like Mark Rippon, I remember he was really cool, really great. There's a lot of great players from the team's franchise, but I've never owned a piece of Washington memorabilia or merchandise. So that's, and I know we'll talk about like legacy and stuff later, but that's to me that's important to understand because I don't come from a fandom standpoint, and some people don't like that. All right, some people would rather hear from a Washington fan, and that's fine. Right. But some people understand the value in that because what I'm telling you is not attached to emotion. You know what I mean? Same goes for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm not a Buccaneers fan either. And the Buccaneers, I think they're in a much different position. One, from a talent standpoint, they've got really good talent across the roster. Guys like Antoine Winfield Jr., one of the best up-and-coming safeties in the NFL. Vita Vea, arguably a top three nose tackle in the National Football League. And then you've got some guys that are kind of underrated. Levante David has been one of the better linebackers in his career, I think, without a lot of press. And then even Carlton Davis is one of the better physical corners. But where they don't have those kind of star players, they've got a lot of big question marks, right? So beyond their number 2 cornerback, Jamel Dean, I don't really even know who the third cornerback is. Who's going to be your starting slot? Antoine Winfield Jr. did it last year, but this year they're saying he's not going to do it. Well, who are you going to put in there? And whoever you're going to put in there, not going to be better than, say, even Danny Johnson, who's probably going to be Washington's second, potentially even third slot corner, depending on what happens with Quan Martin and Percy Butler, and even Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste, right? Like there's a lot of talent in Washington.
Yeah, they got a lot. They got a
but in Tampa, they're very top heavy. And then the quarterback situation is a question mark. Baker Mayfield, all things being fair, I haven't gotten to know Baker Mayfield as well as I have obviously Sam Howell. Baker just got to Tampa. I don't live in Florida, so I kind of get bits and pieces of opportunities to interact with those guys directly. And then the offensive line is just as big a question mark, if not bigger, because while Washington has Sam Cosmi moving from one position to another position to start this year, Sam Cosmi has at least shown some adequate play as an offensive lineman, right? Not saying he's great, all pro, whatever, but he's shown adequate level of play for offensive line. The Buccaneers have a left guard turning into a right tackle in Luke Gedeke, which he was a right tackle in college. You know what I mean? So that's fair. But he was a disaster as a left guard. So you've got a disaster starting left guard now moving to right tackle for the first time in the NFL. I don't know how much confidence you're supposed to really have in that. So, so again, the Buccaneers, I put them kind of on the outside looking in. Could they be competitive? Absolutely. They've got enough talent to do it. But where they're weakest, it's really weak. And if the other teams, they're going to know it. So if it's a matter of can they exploit it? If they can exploit those weaknesses, they're going to have a really hard time covering up for them.
It's tough. I mean, and then in the NFC South, there might be a little bit more of a chance if you look at that. It's like, okay, the South as a whole, we don't know exactly where they stand. It could be anywhere. I mean, I think off paper, most people say, okay, New Orleans is probably the best team in that division, but it's still kind of a toss. We saw how bad that division was last year with Tom Brady in that division. And so the quarterbacks in that division, you got pretty much 2 rookie starters, even though Ritter played a little bit last year. So you got, a guy going to his second year. You got a rookie in Bryce Young. And then, you have Baker, who's, been up and down, but he has gotten the team to the playoffs. And then you have Derek Carr, same dream. So it could be anything. On the Washington front, I agree with you wholeheartedly on the offensive line. That's probably the biggest thing that worries me going into the season, because they're to me, they're stacked at receiver. I think they're in a really good spot at receiver. The tight end room, I think Logan Thomas is going to have a little bit of a reemergence than he had last year. He didn't get the ball enough to me when he was playing last year. I was kind of surprised by that, especially the way he was playing the year before. So I looked at it and said, okay, I think that'll be a little bit better. But that's the only thing that I'm really, truly worried about is that offensive line. Even on the defensive side, I'd probably go linebacker maybe. But everything else seems really like good to go. So I feel you right on that wild card right on that wild card line. I personally, right now, haven't finished in second. I don't know. A lot of people don't like that, but I haven't finished in second right now in that division. But it's early. I haven't made no official predictions. It's way early, but right now, at least number two. At least,
yeah. I mean, look, I've said it on DC radio a couple times in a couple appearances, and I'm not gonna shy away from it. Our Locked On Cowboys hosts aren't gonna like it when we do our divisional previews together, but I think the Dallas Cowboys are gonna step back a little bit. They've made this really great dedication to playing defensive football, which I'm a defensive guy. You know what I mean? Like I prefer defense over offense personally, but at the end of the day, like in the National Football League, it's designed for offenses to win. And again, I mean, look at the Washington Commanders, the 13th ranked scoring defense in the NFL last year, the best third down defense, the best fourth down defense, one of the best red zone defenses, the best goal to go defense. And you missed the playoffs by 2 games.
Right.
You know what I mean? You have to have an offense in this NFL. You can't have nothing but defense. And for the Dallas Cowboys, the biggest gap between where I see the Cowboys and other people see the Cowboys is Brandon Cooks. And I see the numbers, you know what I mean? I'm not blind to the numbers. I know he still had like 1,000-yard production or potential with the Houston Texans, despite everything they went through and all that. And he deserves credit for that, right? But I look at a guy like Brandon Cooks, and he's a one-trick guy. If you stop the one thing he can do, he can't do anything else to beat you. And CeeDee Lamb, while he's good on his own, he doesn't have Dalton Schultz anymore. The Cowboys got rid of Ezekiel Elliott, which I understand why they did, but now you only have Tony Pollard on an offense that you say is going to be more run focused. So you've got Tony Pollard and nothing but unproven young guys behind him going up against defenses in the NFC East. Look at the Washington Commanders with their defensive front, the Philadelphia Eagles with their defensive front, even the New York Giants, who not a lot of people aren't all that high on. They have a very good defensive front led by sexy Dexter Lawrence. You know what I mean? Like
sexy Dexter.
You're going to be a run first offense, but your biggest off-field moves are getting rid of one of your top 2 running backs and not replacing him with a legitimate option and bringing in a stretch the field fly route receiver. It doesn't, the moves don't fit the philosophy. And I don't know if Mike McCarthy is just trying to be like pull fast one on the NFC East, but he was never that clever in Green Bay. He hasn't been that clever in Dallas. And Dak Prescott has proven time and time again that he's not a quarterback that you can put the team on and tell him to climb up the mountain. He's a guy that can certainly steer the car, but he's got to have a vehicle around him. And they've actually taken some torque out of the engine versus putting in there, and they're going to flip the card over the defense side of the ball. So I think, if you put up 22 points against Dallas Cowboys, I think you win every game.
See, it's funny you say it because like the Cowboys have, since they paid Dak, they've taken pieces away from him. That's the part that's been really interesting. And even though I thought we all see that they got better on defense, I really thought that they would take. I thought last year was probably one of their best chances to really make a move. Even though they took Mari Cooper out of the way, I thought that last year was going to be a big chance for them. And obviously it didn't go that way. And then this year, like you said, you take more pieces away. How do you get better? So Commanders number 2 in my book, at least right now. And I know it's early, but I guess when we get to training camp and we'll get to see a little bit more from the team, see how things are going. Now, before we move on to our next segment, I do got to ask you about this, even though it hurts my heart. The Denver Nuggets win the NBA championship 4-1 over my Miami Heat. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, but what are your thoughts on Jokic and the squad getting their first NBA championship?
Yeah, I mean, it's a miracle, to be quite honest. I mean, again, I mean, so my basketball fandom, right? Obviously, I was a Jordan guy. Like everybody was a Jordan guy. If you lived in the 80s or early 90s, you were a Jordan guy, right?
Yeah.
So obviously, I was a Jordan guy, but I also became a real big Penny Hardaway guy. And when Penny and Shaq and the Magic and the Bulls it was a short run rivalry, but that rivalry was amazing to me. I absolutely loved it. Nick Anderson's missed free throws just broke my heart. Back then, I actually think I traded away all my Nick Anderson cards back then when that happened. I was just so mad at Nick.
He got to go.
Yeah, I mean, it was it was more heartbreaking for him than it was for me. But of course, I'm going to be petty. I'm a child. That's my excuse. But eventually, I growing up in Colorado, obviously I started becoming a Nuggets fan. Carmelo Anthony. I got kind of back to like the Kenyon Martin. J.R. Smith was one of my favorite players. Like one of the least consistent players in the NBA at all during his career, but he was one of my most favorite. Like I just loved when JR had the ball. But anyway,
JR was fun though. JR was
yeah,
fun.
absolutely. You know, Chauncey Billups comes in. I love Chauncey. AI, you know, he wasn't the full AI, but just having Allen Iverson on a team that you could root for was just amazing for me as a kid. But honestly, man, I never thought they'd win a championship. Like I watched it and it's like you bring in Chauncey Billups past his prime, you bring in Allen Iverson past his prime. Like the Denver Nuggets have this habit of saying, look, we brought in this big name and Carmelo still can't get it done. And the fans would say, no, you brought in a big name in his twilight years to not even help Carmelo. And then, of course, the trade happens. And then you're just like, okay, this team is never going to win a championship because they're just not about it. You know what I mean? And look, if we're being honest, look at this Denver Nuggets team, right? They didn't really go make any drastic moves to build a championship team. And I don't want to call it luck either, because that takes, stuff away from scouts and coaches and all that stuff. So certainly not coach, but it's a homegrown team, Nikola Jokic, again, I mean, they talked about it all through the playoffs. Like
a lot of drafts.
A late NBA draft pick. People are like, yeah, this guy got picked too. Okay, move on to this commercial. Nobody's even talking about him. I'll admit, when they traded Nurkic and put Jokic, I was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you trading the better guy? So I mean, I'll admit it as a Nuggets fan. Yeah. Jamal Murray, I think, is better than a lot of people expected him to be, although I was always really high on Jamal Murray. Aaron Gordon, bro, when that trade happened, I think I told you this already. When that trade happened, I was like, this is why the Nuggets are never going to win anything. We're trading for guys like Aaron Gordon. What are we like? This ain't the Manimal 2.0. You know what I mean? Like Kenneth Faried is years ago. This isn't the second coming of Kenneth Faried, by the way, I love that man. Like he had actually, he and I actually went back and forth a few times on social media back when he was kind of big, and he's a cool dude to talk to. But anyway, so I owe immense apologies to Aaron Gordon, because he has become one of those guys. You know what I mean? So I honestly, I kind of almost look at it as like a miracle. That's why I soaked in every moment of it, And I remember telling you, like, bro, the Heat have trophies, and you still have Eric Spoelstra. Let the Nuggets, let's get this one, because I don't know if it's ever going to happen.
It's all good.
Yeah, like Stan Kroenke ain't paying these dudes. Like, I don't, like 5 years from now, I'll tell you right now, 5 years from now, Jokic is probably going to be the only dude left on this team, because the rest of those guys are going to go somewhere else to get paid. Maybe Jamal, but the rest of those guys are going to be somewhere else, because Stan Kroenke is not going to pay his NBA franchise. He's focused on the Rams.
It's going to be just like, in my opinion, I feel like it'll be like the Mavericks, like how they stuck with Dirk for a while after the fact. And then it's like, look, I got my big piece. We got a ring. We're good for a while. Let's be honest with you. We're good for a while. That's how some franchises think. You get that championship, they like, all right, we're good for at least 10 years before we have to really start stressing. We just got to either stay relevant or stay in the mix, and we'll be fine. And that's how some organizations, they won't admit it, but I think that's a lot of them think. And but it's all good though. You got the chip. It was well deserved. It hurt. I'm not gonna lie, it hurt. But I'm happy for the Nuggets. If it was like the Lakers, I would be like, if it was somebody that's gotten multiple championships, like, no. But to see a team, or see a franchise, see a fan base get a ring in that circumstance is great. And look, let's be honest with you, Stan Kroenke has been killing it. I mean, we're talking about 3 major championships, not including the other hockey league, and don't destroy me for that. But you got the Rams, the Avs, and the Nuggets, and within a year and a half. That's amazing. So, that Walmart money combined with his money, right on in there, baby. And that's a form
it pains me to praise Stan Kroenke.
I know, man.
It pains me to praise Stan Kroenke, but you're right. I mean, look, the dude he's living the dream. You know what I mean? Like, so, I'm happy for him as a human being, but man, bro, let's get some players in.
But besides that, we'll go from there. Let's figure out what the Rams doing later. All right, that is it. Let's go ahead and head to my favorite segment. It's time for Quick Ones. Ready for the David Harrison version of Quick Ones here on One-on-One? Okay, great. All right, that's good enough for me. All right, so here we go. First quick one. Favorite sports moment. What was your favorite? I mean, probably just lived it. What was your favorite sports moment? For all time. What's your favorite sports moment? It could be as an athlete. It could be what we just saw about a month or so ago. What's your favorite sports moment?
I don't have any favorite sports moments as an athlete. there's none. There's none to brag about.
Rocking the Griffin.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the Avalanche's first Stanley Cup. Honestly, the Avalanche's first Stanley Cup, because that's a team, and I know, like you mentioned, they came from Canada, right? So, like, I say, like, I've been a fan of the Avalanche since they existed, but like, I know the franchise existed in a previous form, but like, that is the first team. I mean, again, you kind of listen to the way I grew up. Like, I was born in in Oklahoma at Fort Sill. We moved to upstate New York. We moved to Germany. Like I'm from everywhere. I don't have a hometown. You know what I mean? So the Avalanche are the only true team that I kind of look at. I'm like, I've been a fan of this team from day one. You know what I mean? So when the Avalanche won the Stanley Cup, like I collected newspaper clippings.
Right.
I wasn't able to go to the parade, unfortunately, but I watched the parade on television. We all got this day off of school, and I was able to watch it on television. Like just actually, I don't know where we were in school. Anyway, whatever it was, I remember watching on television. And just the way, because I mean, like Patrick Waugh, Joe Sack, Peter Forsberg,
Yes.
Adam
The
Foote,
squad, man.
was
Yes.
Adam Foote was one of my favorite players as a defender. Again, I'm a defensive guy, right? So Adam Foote, Adam Deadmarsh, like those kind of guys, like, and it's funny because Cal Foote, his son, Adam Foote's son, one of Adam Foote's sons. I don't know if he still does, actually, to be quite honest with you. But when I got stationed in upstate New York, I found out that he was playing for the Tampa Bay Lightning's farm team. So he was part of the Syracuse Crunch hockey team. And as soon as I found out, I started going to Syracuse Crunch games to watch Cal Foote, this defensive prospect in the Tampa Bay Lightning system. And then he got called up to the Lightning last season. And so I immediately called up my ticket guy for the Caps. And I was like, hey, you got to get me to a Caps Lightning game. And I go there rooting for the Caps, right? Because I now live in the DMV. So I'm like, I'm rooting for the Caps. So that's my home team now. So I'm rooting for the Caps. But at the same time, I'm looking at Cal Foote. And I'm like, I want Cal Foote to turn this game. Like, I want him to be a defender and get a hat trick. I don't even know how it's going to happen. But I want this defender to get a hat trick. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, he gets cleaned by a dirty hit. I can't remember which Caps player it was. But yeah, anyways, and there were just fights all night long, which, you know, is fun in its own right as well for a hockey fan. But yeah, man, I mean, I just, you know, that loyalty there to the Avalanche, that Avalanche team specifically. And I mean, still to this day, like you go to Colorado, like Joe Sakic is a legend, Peter Forsberg is a legend, Patrick Waugh is a legend. You know what I mean? So those guys are forever going to hold a special place in my heart.
Yeah, that's why I think I'm excited for week 2. You know, when week 2 of the NFL season, they go to Denver.
Yeah,
and I've never been to Denver. So I said to myself, I'm going to whatever Avalanche store I can go to grab some Avalanche stuff. I mean, there's stuff online, but I mean, it's different when you're there in the city. Right. So I'm going to make that a point. I was praying that they would be playing because I've never been to a hockey game like live. I've watched it many a times, but that's the one out of my sports I have not had a chance. But they play the week after. And so I was like, if they were playing the day, I'd be in there, but it's all good. Very excited. I still can't wait for that. Let's go to the next one. Worst sports moment.
Worst sports moment. I have to say when Nick Anderson missed those free throws.
It's still bothering. Like, nah, man.
Yeah, I mean, just the heartbreak of it. You know what I mean? Because you know, as an adult, it's not as bad, but like as a kid, I remember watching him shoot those and like my heart's pounding. You know what I mean? And again, I kind of have this conflict. Like I'm an MJ fan, but at the same time, like this is now my team. Like, you know, in a sense, like the Orlando Magic had kind of become my team at that point in time. So like this is kind of a transcendent moment for me as a fan, where my new squad is about to best my old squad. And you know, after those I mean, it was over after that. Like, you might as well, they might as well just packed up and gone home. I mean, I don't have the clearest memories as to how young I was, but like I do remember like that was pretty much your chance. You go back to like LeBron with the Cavs when JR you know, messed up and thought they had the game secured and all that stuff. Like I remember that series, like pretty much from that moment where JR could have made a pass or made a play and the Cavs maybe pull out that win. From that moment on, it was kind of like the Cavs weren't really in it anymore after that. Right. And I remember the Magic after those missed free throws, it was kind of the same way.
Man, it was tough. It's tough. That is a tough one. I still remember that myself. Next one, favorite athlete growing up.
I mean, it's Penny. It's Penny. I'm not wearing them right now actually, but I've got a few pairs of pennies that I walk around in, and I treat those things. You know, I know people like, you know, wear their J's, and don't get me wrong, I love my J's, but I treat my pennies a little bit more special than I do my J's. So Penny I had a lizard named Penny at one point in time. Like Penny, oh my God, I still follow him on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like that's my dude. So
yeah,
Penny Hardaway.
Yeah, well, VCU plays them this year, and I was hoping they were coming to VCU because I was very excited. I saw Penny Hardaway at the airport one time when I was at the Essence Music Festival, and that's the only time I seen him. He was coming down the escalator. Never got a chance to talk to him, but I was like, "Yo, that's Penny Hardaway."
Say,
pretty cool.
I wouldn't even talk to him.
I wouldn't even talk to him. All right, now let's go to the fun ones on quick ones. First one, what's the worst cereal ever? Like just the worst cereal ever.
The worst what?
Cereal.
Yeah. The worst cereal ever.
Yeah.
Lucky Charms.
Lucky Charms.
The cereal has no taste and the marshmallows are gross.
Trash marshmallow,
Jones.
hard marshmallows.
Yeah, no.
And that's off. They're the worst. That's a good one. Last one on quick ones. You are going on an exotic fishing trip, man, and you get to pick 3 famous people / celebrities to kind of go with you. You go hang out on the boat all day. Who are you taking with you to and they could be dead or alive if that's what you wanted to do. But give me 3 people that you would love to have on this fishing trip.
So first and foremost, I'm taking Penny, right? I mean,
Yeah,
I'm probably not going to talk to him. Probably just going to hide on the other end of the boat, but I'm going to take Penny. I'm going to take Denzel.
Oh, okay, Denzel.
So it's interesting, and I don't know if you want to get into this, but I actually had this argument going on with 2 of my really good friends that I say that Denzel Washington has very limited range as an actor, but I still love him. I just don't think he has all that much range as an actor. Anyway, that's totally different discussion. Denzel, and I don't know who another one would be. For the sake of just not making this drag on way too much, Ryan Reynolds, actually.
Right. That would probably be a really fun trip. Yeah, I feel like on that trip you'll get your basketball stories, you'll get the hear from that. Then you get the guy that's going to make you laugh the whole time. He's probably going to be cracking jokes,
and if he brings his gin, it's even better.
It's even better. It's even better. All right, everybody. That was it for the David Harrison version of Quick Ones here on 101. And now it is time for us to go ahead and finish this bad boy up. It's time to leave your legacy. Right now, David, before we get to this last one, thank you for coming on, brother. We truly appreciate it. It's definitely been a fun one. I got to learn a little bit more about you today, my man, and I really appreciate you coming on for that.
Yeah, I appreciate you.
Well, let's go ahead and finish it up. If I just want to know when it's time for you to exit the sports journalism game, and you're out chilling and you're with the family later on and you decide to hang up the microphone, hang up the pen, if you ever do that. What type of legacy do you want to leave behind in that perspective?
It's I've been thinking about this because I knew this question was coming. I'm trying to come up with a really cool answer. Honestly, I'm going to give an answer that I think a lot of people are going to view as kind of a cop-out answer, but it's the God's honest truth. I don't have a legacy that I want to leave behind because the way I look at this, I look at sports journalism a lot the way that I looked at Army leadership, right? And being an Army leader, like I never went into it saying this is who I want this person to know Sergeant Harrison as, right? I believe your legacy is left by the people you influence, right?
Right.
And the only way to influence people truly is to do it honestly. And for me, and again, this is different for everybody, right? But for me, if I come at this trying to say like, here's how I want to influence Darrell, that's not going to be authentic. You know what I mean? Right. I'm going to be putting on a show that I think you want to see. So the only way for me to do things correctly, in my opinion, is to just be authentically me. And that includes being truthful. That includes, having integrity and something that I always try to remind myself of is like, I'll write something and some diehard like Redskins fan from like the 80s will be like, hey bro, like this is wrong. Like what you wrote here, you're not understanding the context. And I'm like, cool. Like, thank you for teaching me that. You know what I mean? And I think in today's world, a lot of that kind of gets lost. We all get kind of superbly like defensive. You know what I mean? But that's just how I approach it, man. Like if I say something, I mean it, you know what I mean? And it's what I believe. Now, if I get new information and that change, in media, how this goes, like we start off the season loving Sam Howell. He comes out, he throws 16 interceptions in 4 weeks. And then week 5, like, he needs to be benched. And it's going to be hold up. 4 weeks ago, bro, you loved him. And now you hate him. This is why we hate media, because you're wishy-washy. Well, it's new information. You know what I mean? But what I can tell you is, what I can tell you is, everything I say is going to be true in that moment. Now, moments change, context changes, matters, situations change. So a week from now, maybe I give you a different answer, but that's an authentic answer for that time and period that we are. And I'm never going to put on a show. I'm never going to say something for the sake of getting people to like me or getting people to react a certain kind of way. I'm never going to write things that way. And, that's caused some conflict, honestly, in the past, not right now, but in the past with like previous publishers and stuff. People have kind of said like, hey, we want you to take this angle. I'm like, I don't see that angle, so I'm not going to write that angle. I'll write this angle because this is kind of how I see it. You know what I mean? And then that's just kind of how, the biggest blessing I have is that I don't need this. I want this. You know what I mean? And I don't know if that's
Yeah,
a good way to put
yeah.
it,
No, I
but that's
like
the
that.
best
I
way
like
I can
that.
put it.
I like that, Dave.
So yeah,
I
so
like that.
but at the same time, I also like I just try to respect the audience. So if you read something I write, like that's I guess that I don't know if that's a legacy, but like that's the biggest thing I would like people to know about how I do my business is everything I do is done with the utmost respect to the subject and to the consumer, right? Um, like we've talked about this. I've had a lot of conversations with Sam Howell over the
Right,
last year, right?
right.
Third string quarterback, fifth round draft pick. Honestly, there's not a lot of people at his locker. So for a guy like me, who like I'm like roaming around like, oh, there's 30 people around Terry McLaurin right now. I'm gonna go talk to Sam. And we've talked football, we've talked family, we've talked, we've just BS. We've talked about television shows, you know what I mean? And so I truly like Sam Howell, the person. But if Sam Howell goes out there and he's not a good quarterback for this team, I'm going to tell you that he's not a good quarterback
You
for
got
this
it. You
team.
got
I'm
it,
going to
Dave.
do it as respectfully as I can. You know what I mean? Like you're never going to hear me go, "Oh, Sam Howell's trash. Get him out of here. Kick him out. Don't even turn off his key card." Like I'm never going to be
Turn
the
off
Skip
his key
Bayless of
card.
the Locked On Commanders podcast. You know what I mean?
Right,
Like because I have respect for Sam. I have
right.
respect for these players. I have respect for what they go through, what they do. And I also have respect for the audience because I don't think the audience, like if that's what you're getting, truthfully, you're not getting honest analysis. That's not analysis. It's I don't even know what to call it. It's heresy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's just kind of where I come from, man. And I guess that's kind of the biggest thing I would like people to know. But really, whatever legacy I leave, whether it's on you, on a listener, on a younger journalist, something like that, it's going to be up to them. They're going to be the ones, just like the young soldiers before me. They're going to be the ones that tell the story of who I was in my profession, not me. So that's going to be up to them.
I love it, David. I'm serious. That's an amazing answer, brother.
I
I
appreciate
mean, and I don't think you copped out on it. I think
it. Okay.
that's a very good way to see it. And I think people don't realize, sometimes it's not about, I tell people, I say, legacy maker, the purpose of the network is to help people get to that next level.
Mhm.
Obviously, we want the network to, be great. We want it to do good. But if I can help some person get to where they want to be in this, that's great. That
Mhm.
for me, that I feel like I've done my job. You know what I'm saying? Like I feel
Yep.
like I've done my job to get that person to the next level. And you made a great point. If people can always go back and be like, man, you know what? Darrell helped this person did or help me in this way. If I know I did that, I'm okay with that. Like I don't
Mhm.
have to have people go and thank me and go, "Oh, man, thank you so much." Oh, no, by all means, if you decide to, that's great. That is
Yeah.
absolutely fine. But like I said, my job is to help you elevate to that spot. It'll give me
Yes,
something
sir.
warm inside knowing that I helped you. But I don't need it in order for it to be like, oh, look what I've done today. I've helped 4 journalists become this. So I,
Right,
I
right.
feel you, brother. I feel you, brother, on
Yeah.
that. Hey, now before we go,
Mhm.
tell people where they can find you, brother. Tell people where they can find you.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter at dharrison82. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not that good of a follow, so I don't know if I'd recommend it. I'm not very active on Twitter. I'm just not very good at it. I tweet a lot on game days. That's pretty much it. But yeah, Locked On Commanders 5 days a week. Locked On Bucs 3 to 5 days a week. You know what I mean? I've got a co-host there, so it just kind of depends on the schedule. But yeah, writing for BucsGameday.com, writing for CommanderCountry.com, writing for InsideTheWizards.com. And I write for some other sites too, but it's more aggregation things like somebody from NFL.com said this and said that. So yeah, you can find me anywhere there. I'm on Threads as well. That's a new thing. I'm on
Threads.
there as well. I'm just
Everybody
as good at
threads.
Threads as I am Twitter, so I don't know if I would even recommend that, but um, yeah. I'm better on subtext. So I don't know if you know what subtext is, but
That's the
basically,
first time I've
if you
heard
go
it.
if you go to joinsubtext.com/lockedoncommanders, you can sign up. It's a subscription-based service, but you can sign up, and I'm a lot better on that, honestly, because you're paying for it. So if you're paying for it, I'm going to make sure you get, you know what I mean? Like I'm not gonna let you give me money for nothing. Like you're gonna get some
You're gonna,
stuff. So I'll give people like previews of episodes, or like if I talk about something, maybe I'll give them like a little bit more in depth of something. I've got some charting episodes coming up, some film watch episodes that I'm going to do. That I've got access to some data and some film that not everybody has access to. So I'm going to share as much as I can of that with those people. So again, so you're paying for it, you're going to get something that not everybody can get for free. But by and large, I mean, I'm accessible. I was just DMing on Twitter with a Commanders fan from England. He's coming for training camp for the first time ever. He was asking me if I knew some information about fan engagement stuff. So I tracked down an answer for him. So I mean, I'm accessible anywhere, but if you do the subtext thing, I'm better at it because I want to make sure you get your money's worth.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna pay me, I'm gonna make sure I take good care of you. I'm not gonna do you dirty on that one. Oh man. Well, look, everybody, this has been episode 99. Now, before we really leave, I know I always like to say that, but before we leave, I got to introduce next week's guest.
Oh, Renee Washington. Let's go. Nice.
Yes. The amazing Renee Washington will come in and kick us, right? Get everything rolling as we enter the hundreds here on One on One. Renee Washington, sports reporter for ESPN and MSG Sports Network. She's the model CEO, one of the best, a Hall of Fame. I didn't even put this on the thing, but Hall of Fame soccer player. So we're going to get into all of that. And that episode's actually going to air on Monday, not Sunday next week. So we're going to get a chance to meet up with Renee and get things rocking and rolling from there. I'm excited about that, and I can't wait to have Renee on. But look, this has been episode 99 with my man David Harrison. David, thank you once again, brother. Thank y'all all for tuning in. We truly, truly appreciate y'all being here for this. It's been one of the funnest things. And just a quick heads up, we got a couple more interviews before we hit to our power rankings version of one-on-one, which will start right before week 1 of the NFL season. So be ready for that. Once again, everybody, I am Darrell Owens. This is Mr. David Harrison. We will see you all next time here on One-on-One.
Legacy Maker, the All Sports Network.
One. Welcome to the one-on-one. When it comes to ratings, man, we number one. I get the truth, then I give them the scoop. If anybody got a question, I give them the